Good, so let's get started, ladies and gentlemen. So let me stand up. Welcome to this morning session here at the Caspian Week Pavilion, right next door to the World Economic Forum Davos 2020. I'm excited to welcome my panelists here on stage. Today we will be talking about, after regulators stone wall fall, what if a corporate has its own money? What if a corporate has its own money? And I think we're talking about the future of money. Who is in the role of issuing a money? Will it be a corporation, a private institution, kind of a non-profit organization, or will it stay in the hands of central banks and governments? This is the key topic of today. And stepping a little bit back, the conversation is all driven through blockchain technology. And for me, blockchain is to the money what email was to the letter. Blockchain is to the money what email was to the letter. So it is truly the introduction of a new technology to the financial monetary system, which is disrupting or innovating the usage of money and also the usage of any financial asset which could be represented on a token on the blockchain as well. So it's truly probably one of the exciting topics here today, because money is influencing power, governments, corporates, and it's essential also for the Caspian region to be successful in the business. So let me introduce you my fellow panelists here. So let me start with the lady here. It's Blanca Zutta. She's associate founding member of the International Token Standardization Association. Then we have Henri Arslanian, Chairman of FinTech Association of Hong Kong and Global Crypto Lead, Asian FinTech Leader at PwC and partner at PwC. Then we have Kairat Kalyev. He is Chief Development Officer at the Astana International Financial Center in Kazakhstan, and we'll learn more about it later on. Then we have Francesco Andreoli. You're a digital asset representative at the Digital Asset Holding. And I want to start with giving you a little bit more time to introduce yourself, what you have been done, and start with the question of why are you here, and why is the topic so relevant for the audience? Let's start with Blanca.
Thank you. Thank you for the privilege to start also as a lady. So my name is Blanca Zutta. I'm a business analyst and with experience in technology and marketing strategy. I currently work for the World Trade Organization as e-learning technology and digital strategist. And I assist, as you said, I'm a founding member, associate founding member of the Token Standardization Association. I believe in emerging technologies and most especially cryptocurrencies based on blockchain technology. And I think that it could benefit emerging markets and developed economies. And so I'm excited to share with you our enthusiasm and contribute to the discussion.
Excellent. So let's hand over and learn more about the AIFC.
Yeah, AIFC means Astana International Financial Center. It's in Kazakhstan, so we develop jurisdiction based on English common law in financial services, like capital markets, asset management, Islamic finance, and FinTech, of course, is one of our pillars. And so developing FinTech, we are facing initiatives from startups, from innovation companies to including blockchain and crypto, etc. So we developed a framework of regulation, and market demands ways of tokenization and issuing stable coins, etc. And so we are starting this starting experience in different countries, and I'm ready to talk about it.
Okay, perfect. Henri,
Excellent, guys. First of all, thank you very much for being here. I know you have a choice of events to go to, so thanks for being on this panel. My name is Henri Arslanian, and really my passion and my focus in life is the future of the finance industry. And it was mentioned, I'm very lucky I do this in various capacities. One is at PwC, where I run our crypto business globally. People may not know this, at PwC, we accept Bitcoin as payment. We have teams in 25 countries. The last 18 months, we did over 320 crypto engagements around the world, including regulators, central banks, corporations, and a lot of crypto exchanges and other players. That's my day job. And what's even more important, my community life, where I'm the chairman of the FinTech Association of Hong Kong, where we have 400 corporates, 1,500 members, so really the voice of the community. And probably what's closest to my heart is my academic life, where I'm an adjunct professor at the University of Hong Kong, where I teach the first FinTech university course at University of Hong Kong. And my last book, which is The Future of Finance, just became a global top 10 bestseller, really with the goal that I find it's unacceptable in 2020. We let students graduate out of universities without courses on FinTech, AI, blockchain, when they're the generation who will be the most impacted by it. So look forward to sharing with you all, and really my key message that I give around the world is that this is the most exciting period of financial history. In our kids, our grandchildren will look back at this period and will say, wow, this 10, 15-year period was one of the biggest game changer, not only with the creation of Bitcoin 11 years ago, but Libra and other developments we have. So we'll look forward to sharing this with you all over the coming minutes, over the coming session. Thank you.
Yeah, Francesco.
That's good. Great energy, man. Awesome. Thanks for the intro, Monty. So I'm Francesco Andreoli, and I'm marketing and community lead at Digital Assets Holding. So basically, we're building the next smart contract framework. So, and super excited to be here. I have other hats today. I'm also partner at a VC firm that we're investing in sub-Saharan countries, and the co-founder of Keybox, decentralized storage. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm looking forward to speak about Libra. Thank you.
Yes, so Libra is kind of the elephant in the room here, but I think that the key question is who should issue money? And what is fascinating for me is, since I've been diving into the topic as a VC and now as an entrepreneur again, it is what is money and who should control it, and why should we, where should it be used? And what is even more interesting is that it creates a kind of a global competition now. So it's a competition of regulation, that countries are starting to compete with each other and saying, please, companies, come to us and start your blockchain companies. And then also it's a competition of the monetary financial system. But at the core of our panel, should a corporate issue its own money? Can I hand this to the audience? And maybe we'll start with Blanca. Can you elaborate on this? Do you think that's the right way to go forward?
Thank you. So, who should issue money? It's a subject to controversial. I think when you see that so many startups and companies having difficulties to access to finance, especially in developing countries, the question is the actuality, because several companies would like to raise funds, would like to start blockchain projects, and still they have to face barriers to access to financing from banks. In addition, we have also this lack of trust following the economic crisis in 2008 from people in financial entities. So all these together, has pushed also companies to ask this question and say, why would we not issue our own money? So I think it's something still, I think both, whatever the companies or central banks could cohabitate, could still find solutions together. So yes, I remain open with this question.
Okay, maybe adding another kind of impulse on that. With my company LCX, we had been part of a working group at the World Economic Forum with 45 central banks. All the central banks are working on central bank digital currencies. So they're questioning, should we issue one? Some of them have proof of concepts, pilot projects. And I was super impressed that you don't have to start with what is cryptocurrency, what is blockchain. They all know it. They have deep knowledge and understanding, and of course, paired with their knowledge of the financial system, it's fascinating what had been the results. And I think it's not the question if a central bank will issue a central bank digital currency, but rather when this will happen. So, and I have a present for everybody in the room because I wrote a book about blockchain banking, and there's a little summary at the door, and everybody who grabs a ticket can get one of the free books, which we then send out later. But what is interesting about the discussion is we started out with working groups and sessions around the topic central bank digital currencies and digital money before the Libra announcement. And it was kind of a knowledge exchange, everybody was interested in. And suddenly Libra announced that they will step ahead as a corporate to issue digital money. And then there was pressure in the room. Henri, how do you feel that in terms of future of digital money? Would you agree this has accelerated the discussion?
Absolutely. First of all, Libra, whether you like it or not, I think everybody in the room should take a bouquet of flowers or chocolate, send it to Mark Zuckerberg and David Marcus. The reason is, without the Libra conversation, we would not have this session today at Davos. Right? It brought this topic. It was an academic topic. Academic when people discuss it. Now it's on top of the agenda, not only of policymakers. Every corporate right now, every CEO of a bank needs to have that answer. That will come to the next shareholder meeting. I personally think that if you look historically, 11 years ago when Bitcoin was created, today if you're a central banker and you love Bitcoin, you're crazy. It's a bit like a taxi driver being excited to see Uber come in their market, right? However, a lot of central banks realize there's a lot of benefits to cryptocurrencies, if you want. For example, traceability, or actually being able to stop corruption. I'll give you one example. Today, if you want to launder money, you want to corrupt people, there's still the best way we have, again, is still good old cash. I have no idea where this money was, or even our traditional banking system is still pretty good. Only in the United States right now, we spend around $50 billion in money laundering every year, and we capture, according to the World Bank, less than 1% of laundered transaction. Somebody who was responsible for this, they'd be fired. The good news is actually with cryptocurrencies, for the first time, we probably have a fighting chance to put an end to corruption and money laundering, especially with a central bank digital currency where you can actually track where the transactions are going. Even with Bitcoin, by the way, today, if you want to buy drugs, you want to launder money, do not use Bitcoin. I 100% guarantee you will get caught. We have a lot of good traceability tools right now. But the second thing from a policymaker perspective, today if I'm a policymaker and I make a certain policy, it's very difficult to track the impact. I live in Hong Kong and I spend most of my life in emerging markets. I'm actually originally, my background is Armenian, again, close to the region. I think we have a great sense of humor in many emerging markets that next to GDP numbers or economic numbers, we put a decimal. The good news is with the CBDC, we can actually track the economic policy. We know exactly what the impact of a certain activity we're doing, which is great from a policy-making perspective. And there's a lot of other benefits like these that we're seeing. So obviously, I'm a big fan of Libra. Whether it's going to work or not, I think the debate is there. I'll just make a correction as well. It was not Facebook that issued it. It's a Libra association, which the blockchain will be open source. Any of you can go build on the Libra blockchain. Any company, there's certain requirements, can become a member. There'll be 100 companies that are a member. Now there's 20. There was 28. And obviously a number of companies have dropped, and we can talk about that as well. But again, it's one of the biggest news, and I'm personally very excited, not only about Libra, but the CBDCs. The question you raise, what is going to be the first country to do it? I would say, what is the first G20 country to do it? And of course here, all eyes are on China. Remember what I just told you, country wants to fight corruption. You want to know what the economic activity is? And actually China by far, I can tell you, is very, very advanced in the topic. The PBOC has been researching since 2014. I spent a lot of time in China. I still live in China. When it comes to FinTech, B2C FinTech, China is without any doubt 2 to 3 years ahead of the rest of the world. There's no competition. In areas like InsurTech, China is 10 to 15 years ahead. And I think when it comes to blockchain technology and CBDCs, if I had to put my money somewhere, I would probably say China will be the first one to issue it.
And there are a lot of expressions going around. If you talk about digital money, there's the expression of central bank digital currencies issued by central banks. There's kind of corporations studying and issuing their money. One expression is stable coins, which I just want to let Blanca explain a little bit on what is a stable coin compared to a central bank digital currency. Are there similarities? Kind of get the expressions explained a little bit.
Stable coins can be of several types. It can be also backed by collaterals or not. For example, some stablecoins such as Basis are based on algorithms, or others are most common. The most known is Tether, is backed by US dollars. So Libra came with an original way to on stablecoins because it's backed by a basket of currencies. So at the same time, stablecoins has several risks associated with the legitimacy of the company also. Issuing the stable coin. For example, Libra made a lot of controversy also because the legal issues in US about sharing of data, personal data. So they have already our social media data, we have our photos, we have all our lives, our friends, and now there is also the risk that they have our financial information. So that's why thank you to Libra, as you say, it raised the discussion about whatever central banks could take more interest into the subject and develop maybe their own cryptocurrency.
So the key about stablecoins is really that there are a lot of speculators, investors in the cryptocurrency space, investing in utility tokens, different kind of tokens. And to go in and out of this speculation, they need a stable value. So they have a token which is backed by a currency. So there's a US dollar stable coin like Tether, which is kind of the market leader, who promise to back it up with US dollar. You never know if that's true. Then there are other ones who are fully regulated, like by Circle Pay, for example, the USDC, and there are plenty of others in the market who are issuing their own kind of stablecoin, which is backed one-on-one with the currency. There's a digital euro, there are all different kind of local currencies in the market. And that is relevant because as an investor, you always want to go back to kind of a safe haven to go in and out of the market. So there are already corporates who are issuing a token which is represented with a backup. But it can be backed up by money, so you put it into a bank account and do audits. But on the other side, that's what I wanted to add and address by Francesco, is you can back it by other things, or you can what's so-called tokenize other assets. So what is the expression of digital assets? How would you explain this?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you know what a digital asset is, but at the end of the day, what we want to do is put several physical, natural, let's say, assets on a tokenized way. And I don't know. I'm not. I mean, going back to the stablecoin, I don't know. I think it's a great idea, but the question here is, do we want to really have? Do we want to have a backed reserve? I think it's a good idea to have new categorized assets there, but is it something that is bringing more than having a USD, for example? I mean, I think it's a great way to implement it, but there is always the same problem that we have, is we're always focusing on tokenizing, bringing securities on the market, but are we focused on infrastructure? Are we focused on is Libra really working well on a technology perspective? And back to your point, sorry for getting a little bit on the right side, but I think Libra is bringing a perfect use case of focusing on awareness. Everybody knows what's going on right now, but the main issue there is people. The Libra Association didn't get back directly to the regulator first. That's why they lose this wave. Oh, yeah.
Can I jump on?
Yeah,
please.
Can I jump on this? Yes, it's true. Libra has allows also for financial inclusion, but for which kind of inclusion? Financial inclusion for the good ones, but also the bad ones, because it raises also questions about money laundering, counter-terrorist financing. Every anonymized system has this risk. At the same time, we talk in terms of Libra of how the network effect. Libra maybe is a threat to sovereignty of different countries because Libra has this network effect. They can use the large database to build, to cover completely several markets. So when we know that if you take only $50 for each Facebook user, you can easily get trillions of dollars that can cover the national debt of many countries. So what is the level of influence that Libra can have also on these countries? So this.
Yeah, that's right. And there, actually, what Henri mentioned is, it is not only Facebook. You know, to be part of this foundation, of the Libra Foundation, you got to bring two things. One is a little bit of kind of a cash to put in the foundation, and the other thing is users and reach. So there are partners like Uber, Andreessen Horowitz as an investor who brings like a bunch of portfolio companies. So, and this might be even accelerating the launch of such an idea even faster. So we spoke about stable coins. We learned about tokenization of any asset as a digital asset representing that. I'm based in Liechtenstein. They've come out with a new blockchain laws which is now in full force since January 1st. And they see the token as a technical instrument, as a container. So this container could be filled with a payment function, like money. It could be filled with a financial asset. It could be filled with a copyright. And then you have the ease of email, where you can send this token from A to B on the world and use this technology basically for efficiencies. But a key thing about, if we talk about all this, is regulation. And also there's an opportunity of different region. And I see a big opportunity for the Caspian region to position itself as well. Kairat, can you explain a little bit what you have planned in Astana and the International Financial Center, and what's your take on regulation of stable coins, digital assets?
Yes, thank you. I'm afraid my opinion will be not very popular here, because I'm almost the only government representative and representative of regulator. But again, we should think deeper in what the things like in real life we have. First of all, I don't think that private currencies is something new. It's in history we had private, like humanity had private currencies. For example, any region or any rich family could issue their own private currency, private coin, with their like face on it, on this coin. But usually these coins was baked by any metal like gold or silver or something. So now we could say that it's stable coin issued by private company, baked by gold, for example, and nothing new. So we have this in history. First of all, second one, we have currently private currencies of private companies, like you know, these apps for kids, or many of you playing these apps too, and there are internal currencies in this app. You put money in this app and buy some coins and buy something for these coins inside this app. And you can even transfer this coin from one user to another user and sell something and buy something. Isn't it private currency somehow? It is. Third example, it's all of you like right here by playing, and you part of something like some miles or coins which you can like use to buy another flight or something. It's kind of internal currency of your air company, isn't it? So these examples are examples of stable coins. Why we are discussing like this? First of all, because blockchain technology is amazing, and it allows us to scale these stable coins and other currencies, etc., for like wider range of people and users. That's why regulators like take a point on it and have to now. If before, so we had these coins and it was like in our hands and it was metal, but now like you have your coin on your wallet and you even don't know exactly what does it represent, and we need somebody who controls it, who says yes, this tether is backed by US dollar. Otherwise, do you believe like to all these currencies? for example. Wait, I will find soon. Second one, Libra is stable coin too, is what it was mentioned. It can be connected to US dollar only or baked of several currencies, but it's stable coin. It's not like coin issued by Facebook only and baked by what? Services of Facebook or something else? No, it's now it's like the idea is to connect it to currencies issued by government, by central banks. Of course, Bitcoin is something unique because Bitcoin is a type of private currency which is decentralized and doesn't belong to, I want to believe in it, doesn't belong to corporate or government or central bank. So I think that's why Bitcoin or another cryptocurrency, decentralized cryptocurrencies are very interesting to use. Third one, of course, a new technology allows people to use more comfortable digital currencies, digital money or whatever. Like many of you use PayPal, it's a digital currency too. When you transfer your currency, your local currency or US dollar through app by banks to your friend, for example, or somebody, it's kind of digital currency baked by US dollar. Why not? Like it is. Technology, it doesn't matter for customer how do you move this money. That's why I think that central banks have to utilize these technologies and start to use blockchain, for example, probably private blockchain, to issue national digital currencies. That's my point. But
one more question to Kairat. So we've seen digital commerce growing. So there are digital products. And now with cryptocurrency or stablecoin, you could buy something digitally, globally, and you're in Australia and you buy something issued by somebody here in Switzerland and pay immediately. So transaction and monetary flow is changing, disrupting without even the need of a bank. What is the opportunity for the Caspian region from your perspective?
I think that not only for electronic goods or services, digital, but for goods and services we are used to use, it's very good opportunity because it allows to trade more, allows to sell across the region, across the countries, across the borders. And this is, I think, biggest issue for every regulator is cross-border regulation. That's why I think that central banks and regulators have to jointly find a solution. How to regulate it, how to monitor all this transaction across the borders, etc. Because old rules of, for example, currency control almost doesn't work. So in nearest future, it will not work. And that's why central banks and regulators have to find new ways, have to develop RegTech, have to be familiar what is Bitcoin is, etc. When you buy something for Bitcoin, you just exchange one commodity to another commodity. But you make it digitally, you make it fast, and this technology is developing very fast. Much faster than rules and regulators can imagine.
Yeah. I see many hands here, so...
I think we have to clarify.
When you said it could benefit the region, yes, I think it could benefit not especially stablecoin. My focus goes more to CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, because the main problem, for example, to raise foreign direct investment is also the lack of data. And when you have a central bank digital currencies, you can monitor where the money goes, where the money benefits which type of sectors. And this type of information, I think, could be crucial also for this region, especially when you have several projects organized by different organizations and World Bank, etc., on aid for trade, for example. And each time they have to collect information, and it's always a lot of information lacking from this region. So, for example, what are the top markets in partners in exports and imports? There is no data for that. So I think CBDC could also contribute to collect data and give a better idea of the economy of the different countries in order to attract foreign direct investment.
So when we talk about the future of money, we need to take a very balanced view on the risks and opportunities. And certainly what is important to point out is that with the rise of digital money, there's actually more data collected. So there's the opportunity to have actually more control on anti-money laundering, on control even taxes and things like that. So I think that's particularly the interest also of the Chinese government to get rid of cash, because its cash transactions can't be monitored as the digital ones. Henri, you want to add something to that?
Just to clarify a couple of things. First of all, on the list on the regulatory and the central bank. So today, according to the Cambridge University, 95% of regulators have somebody working on crypto. I advise a number of regulators. I sit on the Hong Kong's Regulator Advisory Board. I can tell you the average regulator I speak with is way more knowledgeable than the average financial service professional. I would even argue that regulators do not get the credit they deserve for the work they've been doing in this space. Now we have other issues. Like this year, I'm hoping to see a lot more work on tax clarity. It's good to have regulatory clarity, but if you don't have tax clarity, the accounting doesn't work, the tax doesn't work, you cannot audit it afterwards. So you have other issues on that front. When it comes to central banks, according to the BIS, about 70%, 70 central banks are working in this space, most of them at the very research level. I expect this to change this year with Christine Lagarde at the ECB. We already seen the change at the ECB with some new documentation coming up. The BIS is in the middle of a whole consultation on this topic. Only yesterday, there was again 5 central banks came together as well to study the topic. So I think I expect a lot of stuff on this topic. However, I think we need to take a step back really to realize what are we trying to tackle. At the most basic level, if I give you tomorrow morning a Bitcoin, you'll be very happy. But the problem is you don't know what the price is going to be a month from now, a day from now, or a year from now. Well, the reason we have a stable coin, which is a digital asset backed one-to-one by fiat currency, is I give you the dollar, it's going to be dollar today, a month, and a year. And there's a lot of use cases for this. For example, myself, I live in Hong Kong. If I want to send money back to Canada, where I'm from, I pay FX fees, transaction fees, banking fees. It doesn't work on a weekend. Whereas now, actually, when I do it, I send a stable coin. It's $1, send immediately. I can do it on Saturday at 2 p.m., at 2 a.m. Doesn't matter, and the person receives instantaneously. But really, the problem that Libra is trying to tackle is really the market when it comes to remittances. Within the country, the payment systems are not perfect, but they work okay. In the US, in Canada, Australia, whatever. The problem is on a remittance perspective right now, the average remittance fees globally are between 5 to 7%. In many emerging countries, it goes above 15%. And these are the people paying this who deserve it the least. I mean, the people who actually can afford it the least are paying these extraordinary fees. And hopefully, with the launch of Libra and other stable coins, we'll be able to send money around the world at the same cost of an email or a WhatsApp message basically for free. And I think that's something that we should all aspire to and a goal that we should be able to try to achieve.
And if you look at how innovation evolves and how something like new is emerging, there's always the innovator who comes out first. And I think Libra had been brave to also ask for permission rather than just do it and then apologize afterwards. So they are going the hard way to get full regulatory approval. Then there are the fast followers, and then there are the late mass market coming. One more question to Henri. So if you look at different regional competitiveness, bring it back to the Caspian region, how do you see it as an opportunity? Should they jump on immediately or rather be the fast follower?
Yeah, it's a good question. I get this from many governments in the Caspian region. It's a very tricky question because if you look globally, there's certain regions that are very advanced on CBDCs, namely China. I mean, obviously, as you mentioned, China is already cashless. Frankly, I go to China a lot. Every time I go, I'm unbanked. Why? Everything's on WeChat and Alipay. As a foreigner, unless you have a Chinese bank account, it doesn't work. They're trying to fix it, but it doesn't work. It's the only country in the world where I see signs saying refusing cash is illegal. Because everything's completely moved digital from that perspective. So I think that's one. And also, you think about it initially for the digital yuan, the real name is DCEP, which is Digital Currency Electronic Payment, known as digital yuan. It's very limited. It's a private blockchain. It's for M0 level from a monetary perspective. But there's a lot of use cases you can think about. I mean, the one I personally think about is One Belt, One Road. 60 plus countries, including many Caspian countries. I'm sure many countries in that region would be very happy to use something outside of the US dollar. The problem I find with a lot of countries, though, is that You know, the biggest problem right now we have in the global crypto ecosystem. All the companies, all my clients around the world, the biggest single difficulty they have, do you know what it is? Opening a bank account. The number of companies that have gone bankrupt in this space because they're not able to have a basic bank account. The reason banks not open it, because they're afraid of losing their correspondent banking relationships. Ironically, the majority of crypto companies around the world bank in the US. There's a couple of banks that actually almost do exclusively crypto companies. And that's one of the things as well. And that's one of, from policy-making perspective, it's also a big dilemma for a lot of central banks of smaller countries because they cannot be seen having this risk. We've seen it, for example, with the Marshall Islands, which is a country in the Pacific. You know, they've issued they announced they're going to do a central bank digital currency by 2021. There's a 4% inflation rate. You can all it's all public. You can read about it. But also when they announced this, and you can see why it makes sense. You know, when you're a country of islands, having ATMs doesn't make sense. Having cash money doesn't make sense. But of course, after they did this, they had some backlash. And I think that's something we'll see more and more of countries try to experiment this. We've already seen in the US. Again, this is all stuff you can see from Donald Trump's tweets against Libra, saying the US dollar is the most important, strongest currency, to also the CEOs of companies involved in Libra. You know, again, these are letters you can read. It's all public, where many senators have written to CEOs of companies involved in Libra and asking them that if you get involved with Libra, not only we're going to invest your potential crypto activities, but we may investigate all your other business. And of course, if you're a CEO of a public company, then you have to make some tough decisions based on these conditions. So I think it's very interesting what's going to happen, but especially for, I think, emerging markets, small countries, there's a lot of upside, but you need to be very careful because you have to deal with the broader geopolitics and some of the items we discussed.
It seems like to be too perfect to be true, actually. Like introducing of digital money, you have all the benefits. Francesco, why is nobody jumping ahead and doing that much quicker? Like, what are the barriers to overcome, the pain points of the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good question. I want to touch point on the emerging market, and I think it's here, we are not only speaking about payments. I mean, you're speaking about technology, bringing quick technology in the market. I mean, in digital assets, we develop internally all the digital, all our smart contract framework, so that, I mean, the goal is to give people a frictionless method to build stuff. And I think we are always like focused on speaking on crypto and payments. But think about, like, we need to also build the backbone of the infrastructure. And that's what actually a project that probably you guys know is we're trying to move the entire equity market of the Australian Stock Exchange. And that's one little thing, and we are doing it open source. I mean, since 1 year, our technology is fully open source. And I think like the goal here, when you're speaking of emerging market and technology, is to give also people the instrument as much as less friction, so that they can build a technology that can support payments afterwards. Because I don't think that we're moving fully centralized. There need to be some kind of hybrid way to do that. That's what I know.
Please prepare for some questions in the room. Think about it. I'll come back to you later.
If I can
yes, go ahead.
Contribute also to the discussion. Also, there are several challenges related to CBDC in terms of convertibility, because we talk CBDC, China, etc. But it's only a local solution. It's not done cross-border. So in case we launch, any country launch a CBDC, how they will manage the convertibility of their CBDC into another country, especially for large payments between, for example, financial institutions. There is also the AML, CTF risks, how to maybe this could be also managed in different ways. For example, the regulatory approach or standardized approach between different countries, or also technological approach, including, for example, smart contracts into the token to manage these AML issues. And also there are all other challenges related to how to manage security risks related, for example, how to ensure security for cash in and cash out. And there are also macroeconomical risks related to if it's largely adopted, for example, how to manage this large amount of transactions among countries.
It's about frictionless and actually more competitive on a global level. So now we're talking about a trade war, but it might be kind of a monetary fight, at least, against the currencies. What we learned at the Central Bank of Costa Rica, for example, in their country, there's already 45% of the transactions happening with US dollar. So the local currency is already competing with US dollar. What if everything would be fully digitalized? They might have the risk to lose completely the competitive advantage of being the local currency. People would just jump to Libra and other opportunities, and it's so easy because it's on their smartphone. They don't even need to go to a bank, open a bank account.
Yeah, it's not only a question also of regulation and adoption and technology. Also, we need to consider the social aspect. Is the citizens ready to adopt this type of the currency? So maybe it's also the role of the countries to prepare the market for that.
Yeah. We've seen in the digital transformation and the whole digital internet industry, there are still some Galapagos islands. So we've seen, for example, with monetary systems that in Kenya there had been the M-Pesa, the mobile Pesa, with a penetration rate of 96%. People are sending money with a text message from A to B. There's trade happening. There's no need for ATMs because you can go to any retail shop and you get cash there by just sending over a text message. But this system never scaled. And there are other regions like in South Korea where there's search engines, Naver, for example, which are more popular than Google. So, but I feel that with the introduction of digital money, this might now be taken to the next level. What is the question of an audience? Is there a question? Here, the gentleman, come to you.
Thank you. One of the promises of the digital currencies, I mean blockchain-based and so on, was to enable the rise of the small, i.e. you can do business with any counterpart without fearing that, let me say, the counterpart has, I mean, without counterpart risk and so on. Like it happened with, it happened in a similar way with the issue of the first paper money in southern China in the Middle Ages, the Song Empire. I would like a comment from the panel about, is this, just an illusion, or is that the big promise of digital assets? And the second question related to that one, if there are many digital currencies, what kind of competition are we going to see? Is China going to control everyone, since they seem to be the first one to issue a massive digital currency?
Excellent question. So technology of trust and global competition. Who wants to go first?
Just maybe clarify on this, right? So we have to understand how all this was created. First of all, it's a technology that's only 11 years old, So when in October 30, on Halloween Day 2008, Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever he, she, or they are, issued this paper, the first line is to enable peer-to-peer transactions without trust intermediaries. Again, we have to understand this Bitcoin white paper came 6 weeks after the collapse of Lehman Brothers. So again, we have to put the timing in context of how this happened. And you're right, actually, with some cryptocurrencies, we have for the first time the ability to send something, an asset of value to somebody else without these intermediaries. There's a cost to pay for that. Actually, it's very interesting at Davos this week, the cost of one Bitcoin transaction. If I send to you one Bitcoin transaction, it consumes today as much electricity as an average US household consumes for 21 days. Today, the average consumption annual of the Bitcoin network is the equivalent of the country of Luxembourg. It's a massive environmental impact, but many would say that's the price to pay for having decentralization, that we're able to transact without any intermediaries. And to be fair, a lot of this electricity comes from places where electricity is wasted. It's next to the dams and so on and so forth. I think that's the cost to pay from that perspective. Second, I would say when it comes to competition, there's many cryptocurrencies today. There's more than 4,000 different types of crypto assets. Most of them are not traded, there's no liquidity, and so on and so forth. And I think, but each one of them is very different. You know, often like each blockchain you see is very, very different. You know, it's a bit like, for those of you who are older in the room, we had the VHS and beta back in the days of videos. More recently with DVD and Blu-ray formats. And I think what's going to happen now, we have 200 of those, and then obviously we're going to see gradually in some standards and interoperability, which will be come up over the next couple of years, which I think would be very interesting. But again, we have to put in context, this technology was invented only 11 years ago. Actually, the word blockchain, by the way, was not in the Satoshi white paper. It was actually a term coined by the economists only a couple of years later in Bloomberg, actually. The white paper talks about chains of blocks, blocks of chain, and the term was actually only coined. So I think we have to also put things in perspective of where we are in the cycle. But I can tell you, it's moving very, very, very fast.
Anybody else who would like to talk about the competition and trust, the trust technology?
Yeah, I think it's also a question of a solution will not fit all. Each country will come with its own problem, with its own trust issues with the citizens, and also its own financial power to implement these CBDC systems. So it has a cost. It has a cost that is not accessible for all countries. Emerging countries, maybe they don't have the same financial power to implement in the same way as in developed countries, but they have facilities that maybe some countries can develop more easily these tools.
Next question here, first row.
Assuming that all governments create their own cryptocurrencies or whatever digital currencies, do you see any future for other stable coins once that is created? Question number one. And then in my opinion, fiat currency or your own government currency is the equivalent of sovereignty. So do you see a future where governments give up that sovereignty?
Francesco.
I mean, I don't think a near future the government give up their authority, and especially in that field. I mean, I'm a huge fan of basically a cooperation instead, like you know, centralized power. I don't know if any one of you want to touch point on that.
Personally, so future of stable coins. Again, a lot of stable coins in the market. Again, just for everybody in the room, it's a digital asset backed 1-to-1 by US dollar. So it's worth $1 now, it's worth $1 in a month. Many of them are regulated right now. Some of the biggest one right now actually globally is not, but many of the ones you see right now are actually regulated by the New York Department of Financial Services. These are firms that are being in. There's actually a lot of Big Four coming in, and there's a lot of work that we do to ensuring that what is the $1 is actually $1 there, and it's a regulated product. So I think I'm not too worried about that instrument. The question would be how are they going to be used, and what's the potential? I'm personally very bullish on stable coins. I think there's a need for them. I'll give you a very simple example. If you're a crypto asset trader, if you're in a normal world, you're managing securities in a normal traditional world. Whenever the markets get choppy, what do? You either sell them, you go to cash or treasuries or T-bonds. The problem we had in the crypto world until like 1 or 2 years ago was when the markets were getting choppy, there was no way for them to get into something stable. That's how stable coins allow you to stay in the crypto ecosystem by being into a stable coin. So I'm actually quite optimistic and I think there's always be a need. Yeah, so the question is then what if the central bank issues its own central bank digital currency? What's going to happen with that? And by the way, it's a very big policy question. For example, the BIS, there's a number of, the Bureau of International Settlements, which is the club of central banks, if you want, has a number of reports where they say that if central banks issue their own central bank digital currency, there's a risk people take their money outside of banks and come and buy this real risk-free asset which is issued by the central bank. And that may actually cause financial instability, rise in interest rates, and so on and so forth. And many countries, for this reason, they said they're not going to explore it. South Korea is a great example of that. So the question is how the central bank, how they can issue the currency, but it's still whether they're going to keep the banking industry as the intermediary. I think they will. I think no central bank wants to start doing KYC, AML. I think they want to have these banks are acting as the intermediary on that perspective moving forward.
Next question over here.
No, I just wanted to complete this. I think it will be a real challenge for central banks also to develop this connection with the customers, the end user. So maybe I don't think they will develop new tools to create this relation with them, financial relation, like the commercial banks. But maybe it would be a good approach to use the infrastructure created by the central banks to disseminate this.
Okay, I'm responding to the gentleman who's exactly on the other side of the pillar, so that while I've been listening to his comments with interest, I actually have never seen him. But I'd like to connect two different pieces of data, so just stand with me. He mentioned that one of the problems with cryptocurrencies is they use tremendous amounts of energy, so that they apparently are bad for the environment. One of the technologies that's being developed, and I'm working with companies that are doing that, is that one of the worst things for greenhouse gas emissions is the flaring of gas. And many isolated locations where they're producing oil, in order to produce the oil, they have to flare the gas. Well, this technology is putting together hundreds, if not thousands, of computer servers and using the energy from that flared gas and sending it directly to satellites and basically using that energy for cryptocurrency mining. So there is a technology and a way to reduce greenhouse gases and provide the energy for the Bitcoin mining. So it doesn't have to be something that's harmful for the environment. There's a technology that can utilize energy that would otherwise be flared gas.
Thank you for your comment. I mean, again, just to clarify, the reason it takes electricity is something we call proof of work, which is when you hear about saying Bitcoin mining, that's the process that consumes a lot of electricity. And I mean, I can go whole. Let's not go in the rabbit hole. The reason, to be fair, a lot of new ways that we're reaching consensus, which is coming out to this, solving these problems. There's new like proof of stake and other ways of actually that consumes way less electricity. I always like the analogy. It's a bit like the Ford Model T in 1907 when we started having the first car engines. They were big, they were loud, they took a lot of gas, and they were slow. They were barely faster than horses. And now we have Tesla. And actually, in the crypto world, we are getting to the Tesla of actually reaching this consensus mechanism. The reality is today, proof of work, which is the mechanism used by Bitcoin and some of the other major currencies, is the process that takes a lot of electricity. But I can tell you right now, a lot of new cryptocurrencies coming in the market don't have the same energy consumption from that perspective.
There's another question over there.
Yes, I would like to know the panel's opinion about the impact of quantum computing on cryptocurrencies, because according to predictions, the current encryption codes can be broken instantly with quantum computing.
Yeah, so great question on quantum computing. This is, as you guys know, this is a bit we had in 2019. Google makes some progress when it comes to quantum, and many expect over the next couple of years. The big question is when and who and if is going to be able to have some quantum capabilities. And you're right. I think when you look, again, I'm not a quantum expert, but for a lot of the algorithms that we use in the Bitcoin network, could be broken by quantum. For example, the SHS 256, which is the main one actually not only crypto industry uses, but a lot of other industries, could potentially be broken using quantum computing. The one thing I would mention, though, is the way the Bitcoin, again, works. I talk about this in my book, and it's not to keep it very high level. Every time you make a transaction, there's actually, you kind of leave a trace of your public key. And actually, that's something that potentially, if somebody has assets on a certain address, that could be potentially broken in using quantum computing. I'm not sure there'll be a problem with the blocks. There's another curve, we call the elliptical curve, that is used in those mechanism. But definitely, I think there is a risk to the Bitcoin network. But frankly, before we get to that, if we have quantum capabilities that are issued, we have a risk for a lot of other industries, from our phones to other stuff that we use on a daily basis. But that's something also, Frank, to be fair, that a lot of the crypto community is working pretty actively on it. But again, so it's a problem, but it's not that big of a problem, depending on which algorithm we're talking about.
Kairat, can you comment on this opportunity of the Caspian region in terms of regulatory opportunity? So what if somebody comes to you and says, I want to issue the Caspian dollar, create the foundation? Are you open for that? And what would be the opportunity in the International Financial Center?
I think yes, kind of stable coin with a basket of currencies, if it helps to develop trade across the region and help e-commerce, why not? We just have to understand how it will work, how it will be backed with, etc. Again, to the topic and this digital currency and all the stuff, I just want to tell again that definitions are very important, because everything you pay or transfer cashless is digital. Everything. So what we are talking about, stablecoins, etc., it's more about technology. So it's a digital currency on a blockchain technologies. That's it. And there are a lot of examples. For example, China, as you mentioned, with WeChat, they are almost cashless. Or Sweden, where the project, Sweden, Central Bank of Sweden developed a project with commercial banks called Swish. Probably have heard about it. And Sweden now has more than 97% probably of cash going cashless. Not more, probably only in retail, but they are also issuing a rule to make merchants accept cash money, because they are thinking about customers who is not familiar with this app. But it is very popular in Sweden, and people get rid of cash at all. And I think that our target, like as a regulators, as a fintech development and e-commerce development, is get rid of cash. And I think that blockchain can very much help on it to develop cashless economy, to develop trade and e-commerce across the borders. And again, this is what regulators and central banks have to talk about. And also, I brought. It's coins issued by Central Bank of Kazakhstan. It's cash coins, and I think that the best way we have to utilize cash coin is to make a gift as a beautiful merch. Yeah, it's a gift to participants. Yeah, it's just coins. Yeah, and
excellent.
Please make trade cashless, whatever. Yeah, please.
So everything that can be digitalized will be digitalized. And talking about the token economy, some people say everything that can be tokenized will be tokenized. And with money, it is not a matter of if, but rather a matter of who and when. Imagine, for my panelists, you would be standing in the main auditorium at the World Economic Forum addressing the world leaders. What would be your one statement, your one sentence, I would say, you would address to them? So I would like to wrap up the session shortly. What would you say? Blanca, do you want to get started?
Maybe, yes, I would say that we heard about regulation, but maybe the key word is not regulation. Maybe the key word is standardization at the different levels, not only at the technological level with the smart contracts, APIs, everything, but also at the financial level, regulatory level, at how countries collaborate with each other, how they define the protocols of the different CBDCs. So my second word would be collaboration among the different stakeholders. Collaborate, maybe the regional approaches would be better. And then capacity building, because we need to prepare people to face these new approaches.
Kairat, what would be your statement to the world leaders?
I would agree with the collaboration statement. So I think that's main part. And so states have to agree what technology to utilize, how to regulate, and how to develop how to utilize new technology and develop new ways of trade, money transferring, and all this customer experience to make world more comfortable.
Henri, what's your statement to the world leaders?
The message I often give to many audiences, including many of you, actually, if when you go back home, ask your kids or your grandchildren what they think about cryptocurrencies. You'll be surprised of their answers. I believe as policymakers, leaders, we have an intellectual duty and a moral duty to at least be educated about it. You know, I tell people, spend half an hour a week, just read about this topic. It may be right for you, maybe not required, but we have a moral duty not towards us, but towards the next generation coming after us. You know, when I teach at university, I always ask my students, who do you trust more? You trust the banks or the large technology firms? And the majority of my students have more trust towards large technology firms. Again, most of these grew up during the financial crisis. And as leaders, I think we have this moral duty towards the next generation of people and our kids and our grandchildren.
Francesco, what do you tell the world leaders?
Well, for sure, I will tell them, like, we need to focus on the end result. So our goal is to create mass adoption. So this is not done through regulations only, but I think the usability is where we need to go. So people need to have a frictional method, a great user experience in any product that we are building. So that's will be my end words.
So adding to all of your statements, I think the future is already here. It's not just widely distributed yet. So we are basically at a tipping point of the monetary financial system where we see there are pilot projects, there are smaller discussions going on, but when will this be taking to the mass market? It's an opportunity for inclusion, banking the unbanked. It's an opportunity for efficiency and a special opportunity for the Caspian region as well. So I want to thank you everybody for contributing to this discussion, and thanks for the Caspian Week for hosting this important topic. Have a good day.
Thank you.